Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Tim Jones, representative of the newly created House District 110, which encompasses portions of St. Louis County and Franklin County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for hearing House Joint Resolution 14 tonight. I thought I would, I know we have a very full room, and I know there's probably a lot of people who would like to weigh in. Apparently, we've sparked a little interest in the state with this proposal. So I'm going to give some basic broad overview, and then I know you'd like to have as many people testify as possible regarding some of the proposals we're going to start examining as we move through the session. After years of difficult and tight budgets, and after years of being through some very tough economically challenging times, many of whom believe that we still have several years ahead of us on this road, Missouri's public infrastructure is in need of a great deal of repair and expansion. And if we go ahead, if we agree, if a majority of us agree that that premise is true, then we need to start talking at this time about how we're going to provide solutions. And those solutions are not easy, and we've examined a number of different proposals over the years. And I believe that although many of us would wish that we could invent the Missouri money tree, that's not going to happen. So we're going to have to examine something of a different aspect, and I believe HJR 14 is something that deserves due consideration. Many of our state buildings require maintenance. Our state park system has delayed over $400 million in critical developments. Our higher education institutions have backlogged a variety of projects that range from much needed repairs to residence halls, to modernizing our classrooms and keeping them up to 21st century standards. With the revenue generated by a bond issue, such as HJR 14 proposes, Missouri can quickly begin projects that have lingered on the books for far too long. All of the stakeholders who are interested in this proposal, many of whom are here tonight, have simply updated their project list year in and year out without realizing any of those projects beginning. I believe the needs are critical, and some could possibly very well argue reaching a crisis state. The current legislation, which is simply a conversation starter, proposes a $950 million bonding proposal. It's similar to some of the proposals that have been considered successfully before by this House, and I believe similar to the proposal that has been filed also by our colleagues in the Senate. Approximately $250 million would be directed towards state buildings and facilities. $40 million of that $250 million would go towards the maintenance of parks and park facilities. Our community college system would receive $105 million, which is 15% of the total higher education funding. Missourians will reap rich dividends from this investment in our future, and a future that will be for future job creators, the leaders of tomorrow, our children of today. Restored state parks will also be able to preserve Missouri's natural beauty. We have some of the best parks in the nation, and they have been recognized for that. State-of-the-art classrooms, as I mentioned, will train tomorrow's leaders and provide jobs to ease our construction industry's 17% plus unemployment rate. Missouri has successfully done bonding proposals several times in the past, most notably under Governors Kit Bond and John Ashcroft. And as a result of those bonding proposals, Missouri saw more jobs and better public services. Bonding was an extremely smart and wise idea at that time, as the populace agreed. I believe it's even a more intelligent decision now. As I've said many times, money is a commodity, like gold, silver, oil, or any of the other commodities, and just like when the prices of those fluctuate, the cost of obtaining money changes over time depending on market conditions. Wise investors seek to buy those commodities, of course, at the lowest prices possible. As I said, if we agree with the premise that Missouri needs investment and needs revenue to repair our public infrastructure, and right now we agree that money is cheap, with interest rates being at an all-time low, combined with our extremely strong credit rating, these conditions mean that this is now the wisest and most fruitful time to act. I'd also point out the bill in its current form, and I'm sure this will be worked on as well, It protects taxpayers by specifying that the proceeds from the sale of the bond can be only used for projects that meet the criteria of this legislation. Most notably, that criteria will first be established by this committee. Additionally, the revenue placed in the Fifth State Building Fund, as we're commonly referring to this bill, can only be used to pay off the principal and interest of the bond. So Missourians can be confident that any of the revenue created from this investment will only be used to provide them with quality public infrastructure they need and deserve. Mr. Chairman, you have a broad-based committee that you and I and the Vice Chairman worked on to make sure we established was diverse and represented both sides of the aisle and as many parts of the state as we possibly could. So I'm confident that you will move forward judiciously and expediently, but also carefully. One thing I know that you and I have spoken with recently is making sure that those taxpayer protections are definitely instilled in this bill. I think something we might want to think about is a more official mechanism that we might want to incorporate in the bill as we move forward, sort of a taxpayer watchdog, just to monitor these projects as they move forward. It's something I'm sure you can investigate. I would say to all the stakeholders that this is simply a starting off point. I'm sure this bill will undergo a lot of different changes or revisions throughout the process. We'll have to marry it with whatever comes out of the Senate. So I'd ask everybody to keep an open mind and be patient as we work through this. This is an extremely critical opportunity for our state, but it is one that I think could result in a really bold and bright future for Missourians. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy Keene, here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we'd like to go on record in support of HCR 14. Actually, this issue is a top priority for the Missouri Chamber and our members, and it's a priority because it's an investment into Missouri's infrastructure, it's an investment into Missouri's education system, and it's an investment into Missouri jobs. All of these things which are critical for Missouri's economy and moving Missouri forward. You know, we've mentioned, it was mentioned a couple of times, the other bonding issues. I do want to point out that back in 1982, when Governor Kit Bond issued the $600 million in bondings for higher education and infrastructure, he did this at a time of economic recession, and it was considered to be a major factor in job production and also inflation control in bringing the state out of that recession. So we think it's very important to do the same in the economic climate that we currently have. And I do think that due to Missouri's commitment to sound fiscal management is why we currently have the top bond rating. And so with rates that we are seeing historically low, we believe that leveraging the triple bond rating allows Missouri to continue to invest into infrastructure, into economic development, and into jobs around the state in a fiscal manner. We believe the time to do that is now, and again, we wholeheartedly support the bill, and we'd ask for your support.
Any questions?